program. It's the Buddy Martin Show on a Wednesday night. Our usual cast of thousands will not be here, but we've got a good lineup for you. You're going to always have a good night when you get Allie Peek-Wilbur back after a couple of weeks. Kind of got drenched down there in Tampa. We're glad she's back, and she'll join us in just a moment right here on the program. We're going to have Scott Carter tonight with us to go over some things. They got the newest, I guess it's the injury list, whatever you want to call it. Got that out tonight. Know who's eligible, who's not, who's going to be questionable, who's going to be whatever they call it. It's all Greek to me, but anyway, it'll tell you not unexpectedly. Naturally, Graham Mertz is out for the season, among other things. We'll tell you about that, and then we're going to talk about whether or not negativity among the fans and media is toxic for the program. You get two sides on this. You tell it like it is. You tell it what you know to be the truth. It's not always favorable. Does it hurt the team? If it does, should you do it? All those things. Every journalist I know goes through that. Also, the question was, why didn't Billy go for 2 points when he had the opportunity? That will always be around. And the guy who was at the game and who covered it and wrote about it is on the program. Kevin Brockway from the Gainesville Sun joins us on the program. It's going to be a good one. Tee it up. Come join us. The Buddy Martin Show is now on the air.
Buddy Martin, call him up and tell him what you're thinking, but be kind because he's doing the best he can.
Better, stronger, faster.
Mama says that alligators are ornery because they got all them teeth but no toothbrush.
Hey, what if the voice calls while you're gone?
Take a message.
Bye.
You ready, champ?
I'm ready for this my whole life.
I'm incapable of small talk. But that's why you love me, right?
Kind of intimidating to be in the presence of so many great athletes.
Good evening and welcome to the program, Buddy Martin. This is the Buddy Martin Show. Just around the corner on the other side in the Orange Blue Room is our good friend Allie Peek-Wilbur, who's now back after some time off, much needed to dry herself out. I understand she's even got power now, so she's living in luxury. Allie in just a moment, followed by Scott Carter later on. We'll go over the injury list, among other things. And then Kevin Brockway's got an interesting take on why Billy should have gone for it or not. And tonight, the question we're going to try to explain is, when you're a media person, do you have an obligation to try and put positive spin on stories? I don't think so. I think you write it like it is and do the best you can to explain it. And I was probably very negative in my column on Sunday. That's the way I felt, disappointed in a game that they had in hand, could have easily won it by who knows. And they get away from them once again. Same old story. Some things have not changed. I saw what Allie said earlier in the week. I think she shares that. Let's go online right now and get Allie and talk to her about her. Welcome back to the program. Are you finally dry? And do you have electricity now? Wow.
We have power starting to dry out. My neighborhood is still very, very wet. Thankfully, my backyard is built up high enough that our backyard is not a swamp, but many of my neighbors are underwater up to their patios. And obviously lots of Tampa had it much, much, much worse than I did. But I'll tell you what, 5 days without power with 5 kids is not that fun.
It's tough. It's tough. And especially this time of year, I understand. And you don't, if you haven't ever gone through it, you won't understand. I went through it with Charlie. I've only had to leave and go get a hotel room. It was so bad for us. And I remember making coffee on the grill.
Yeah.
The charcoal, because it's all I get coffee.
The way you could do it. Yeah. We had a generator, but we would have to pick and choose. Okay, guys, nobody has internet right now because we got to make some coffee. You're picking and choosing what you're running on there, and a lot of darkness.
For sure. We were lucky. I know I almost have survivor's guilt. I got out of Ocala just before things got bad. arrived here in Panama City, which has been beautiful. And a lot of my good friends didn't have that kind of luck.
Yeah.
And you look at North Carolina without going into a long monologue on what damages were done. We know this tremendous damage, loss of life, loss of property, and the uncanny nature of the hurricane going to North Carolina, totally unprepared for it up there.
Yeah.
I mean, lots of people, I know some people who had houses with no insurance.
Mm-hmm.
They don't get hurricane insurance. And
right. There's no flood insurance needed in the mountains.
right. And I mean, I don't have flood insurance on my house in Ocala. I don't know about you. If I was in Tampa, I might. When I lived in St. Pete, they wanted me to have it. But you just learn these weather patterns are so wackadoodle. And boy, my heart goes out to these people suffering with this, and the loss of life and injury and whatever. And I just pray that they will be able to recover from this, and that the recovery will start soon. So one thing we can do is maybe entertain a few people tonight and then hopefully inform them, as I know you will. And we are down to that critical time, as someone said today, 6 games to go. Would 4-2 save Billy? Well, first of all, they're not going to go 4-2, but I've decided I've been so negative. I'm going to try to be a little more positive, because the column I wrote on Sunday last week, Saturday night, was all about Billy not being willing to take responsibility and blame or answer the questions. Yeah. Much of what you said on yours. So why don't I start by taking your comments about the game? You can pick apart anything you want to, the fourth and inches, whatever you want to, and what things may have bothered you the most. And then we'll get some comments from our listeners.
I feel bad for the players. I feel like this is a team of guys that are still fighting. And I think that's incredibly admirable. I actually feel like the defense has taken a step in the right direction. And it felt very much like that loss was 100% on the coaching staff. And that makes me feel bad for the players. And I just feel like, I said this on my show, but in a bubble, you can say, okay, well, Graham Mertz fumbled the football on the 1 yard line. You can say there are procedural penalties because 2 veteran wide receivers both lined up in an illegal formation, or, an injured player that was pulled off the lineup should know not to run out on a special teams. Like, there's just in a bubble, I understand individual mistakes are the responsibility of these players, but it's a symptom of the Billy Napier tenure, right? A hallmark of his tenure is these procedural penalties and errors and mistakes that at this point, I think it speaks more to the coaching staff than it does to the individual players, because we shouldn't still be making these types of mistakes 2.5 years in. Better teams, better programs don't continually lose games because of these mistakes.
Agreed. And with the margin of error is so thin, they can't afford to have these mistakes. And I know there were issues. We can break them down if you want to, talking about why they had too many men on the field, although I don't think that's ever an excuse.
No, and I have questions about that too. And I have a lot of issues with blaming a player in a press conference after the fact. I know he didn't say whoever it was by name, but there isn't an excuse here. And so to say like, oh, well, a player didn't do this or do that. No, and you own it. It was on me. I shouldn't have done it. I'm the person that needs to be held accountable. And those words don't come out of his mouth ever.
You're right. And I ask you, as a member, long time, you're a triple legacy, and your parent, your whole family are Gators, and your husband played there, and you've been following it, writing and talking about it for many years. You know a lot about the game. You know a lot about what takes place in the locker room. And I ask you, when you're trying to decipher what part is personal and what part is professional, how do you sort it out? Because I know people that got angry who said, I'm not covering this team anymore ever again, and what have you. It's a thin line. Yeah. But then you have to be professional and say, wait, I didn't like it and they didn't play well. Do I think the coach should be fired? Maybe, say, or if you say you should, but there has to be authenticity. There has to be accountability. And the part of it that I resented most of all was his unwillingness to explain it in the press room.
Yeah.
And as they were talking about somebody in another world, that they had, and he, as I said, he wasn't willing to even acknowledge that he had a boss for that matter. So, I mean, I'm not going to be that guy tonight. I'm going to be wait and see. I talked to a couple of people today and asked their opinion about it. I said, well, nothing's going to happen until the end of the year anyway. So I'm going to try to keep it in perspective. How do you do that? And how often do you get upset because of your ties as a Gator and a Gator family?
I get upset because I think these players deserve better. I think fans deserve better. And I want to see my team win. I try very hard to never make anything personal. I actually think Billy Napier is a good person. I think he's done a lot of good things behind the scenes at UF, particularly for some of the non-revenue sports. He's opened some doors for them. I think everybody that works for him has good things to say about him. So it's not like I'm sitting at home saying like, okay, how can I sabotage Billy Napier? Or what bad thing could I bring to light about him? It's not like that at all. I honestly feel guilt a lot of the time about being as blunt as I am, but I also feel like we have a responsibility to call things as we see it. That's what this job is, right? Like I am not the PR person for the University of Florida. I'm somebody that is trying to paint an honest picture about what is going on with the Florida Gators. I'm a glass half full person. I want them to win. I will root for them to win. I'm not the type of person that would say like, oh, well, if we lose this game and they fire him, maybe that's better for the long term. I want us to win every single game, and if we win the 4 of the next 6 and Billy Napier keeps his job, that's awesome. That means the Gators have turned a corner and they're headed in the right direction. I don't find that likely, but I would absolutely support it if that's what ended up happening. But I don't, for me, the line is personally attacking anyone. That's something I would never cross. And I don't feel like I've ever done that, but I will also never stand here and say, hey, he should get 10 years and Gator fans should just accept this.
Yeah, and I think it's very hard for people like this guy here who says, oh, how many times do you hear the same thing? I like Billy Napier, but, and
Right.
here's Alan saying, I think Napier's a good person. However, he's not a good football coach. I can see the correlation in that, and you have to be careful. You don't want a good person to have bad fortune, especially if he's coaching your team. But you have to say, and Allie, I've been up at this, against this for 50 years. Of being a tell it like it is guy for the most part. And then, and people getting mad at me, even coaches and players that I knew. Although for the most part, they understood. They seemed to understand. And so I think it's something that I did this. I don't usually have compunction about it, but I wrote this column talking about nursery rhymes and him talking in nursery rhymes. I felt like it was spot on. The next day I felt kind of bad about it. But let the ships fall where they may. It's not our job to coach.
Yeah, it's not. And, I felt, sitting here on Wednesday, maybe I was a little harsh on Sunday morning. I maybe I wasn't. I don't know. I feel bad that it feels like we are constantly attacking our head coach, but I also don't feel like it is anything personal. It is a job. And he is a good person, but the job isn't, hey, be a good person. The job is win football games. We hope that the person we have winning football games is also a good person, right? We hope that there are life lessons being instilled in these players that they take with them after their time for football. But he's being paid to win games. And when you are 1-9 against your rivals, you're not winning enough football games. You're just not. And when you lose a game that you probably should have won by 3 touchdowns, it should be fair game for us to say that, this guy's making millions and millions and millions of dollars to be not even mediocre at his job, to not be good at his job. And so I don't think it's right for us to feel guilt about calling a spade a spade.
Yeah. And I hear what you're saying. How can I put this? At a time when they're down, they need whatever boost they can get. it isn't our job to be the cheerleader. Now, I have a very good friend who has some influence. There's not Spurrier or whatever, who wrote me a note saying, buddy, you have to understand where we are right now. Billy should not and won't get fired during the year. What Gators need to do is support the program, write more checks, be behind them, give them a chance to turn the corner, and and help them. Well, I'm sorry, I can't agree with that because it's not my job to win the game or even to tell them how to coach it. But it is my job to say the egregious mistakes that we've seen, especially the one with the substitutions. Even though we know that there was a reason the guy didn't get off the field and all the things that happened there, it still shouldn't be happening at this point after all these years. And you know that, and I know that. And that's the problem, I think.
Yeah. And I think it's fair to say, hey, we are going to continue to support this team because we support these players and we support the University of Florida. I also have kind of come around this week to the concept that I'm not 100% against him coaching the rest of the season.
Right.
And that the barometer for me is whether or not the locker room continues to be bought in. And the locker room does appear to be bought in. We haven't had anybody publicly opt out. These guys are playing hard. They're playing harder now than they were at the beginning of the season. Especially the defense. At the beginning of the season, I gave a lot of grief to the defensive line because there wasn't that motor. There wasn't that effort, but that is there now. So I am totally behind the concept of supporting these players, supporting these team, wanting them to win every single game. And if that saves Coach Napier's job, then great. That's great. That means Florida won some ball games. I don't think that it's really fair to tell fans, okay, write more checks. Like, I think everybody is in a wait and see mode. And I think that's fair. I think he gets the rest of the season and the bar hasn't changed. We've said the bar is 6-6 to keep his job. Yeah. We said that over the summer. And it's still in front of him. Is it likely? Probably not. But is it possible? Yes.
As someone wrote today, and I wrote it down, when you put it this way in black and white, can they go 4-2 the rest of the way and Billy keep his job? Kentucky, Georgia, Texas, LSU, Ole Miss, and FSU. I see 2 possible wins in there.
Yeah.
But that still doesn't get him to 6.
Yeah.
And that doesn't, I don't know. I'm with you. This person also said to me, get a new offensive coordinator, let Billy be the sort of the executive coach, or look the program, and then somebody to call the plays. I don't know.
But that his opportunity to do that was last offseason or the offseason before, when both times it was not only did fans call for it, but people with influence within the university called for it, and he said no. And so he knew going into this, he was going to live or die by that decision. So I don't know that I think it's really fair to be like, oh, you didn't hit the bar we said for you. You also didn't take any of the advice we gave for you, but now you're going to take it now that we actually want to put you on the chopping block. Like I don't think that that's a great, thing. I hope that that's not how it happens. But if he hits the 6-6, then give him the 4th year and let's go. Let's see what you can do with Lagway. And, with Lagway as the starter now, maybe we all get a glimpse into the future and maybe things improve. Maybe worse. I don't know.
Yeah. Then you get into the conversation about the new coach. What if he keeps Lagway and doesn't keep Lagway? And I got into a discussion with Shane about that. He said the new coach may not want Lagway. I said, well, then I don't want him. If you can't sit and tell this guy how hard it is to find a quarterback,
Yeah, I think
that one.
So, anybody we would be looking at is going to want DJ Lagway. Find me a coach in this country that wouldn't want DJ Lagway.
Yeah, and I'm with you on that. And they'd be crazy not to.
Yeah.
Just looking at the injured list, not counting obviously Mertz.
Mm-hmm.
You got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 out. Includes the Montreal Johnsons of the world, etc. And then you got some questionables, including Montreal Johnson is questionable, along with who else? Webb, Thornton, Turner, Underwood, and Barber. Now they put those questionable ones on there, and usually most of them play.
Yeah.
Because it gives them an excuse. So
Yeah.
I don't know how that will affect that. Now look, Kentucky is a bizarre team. At moments they can play great, as we found out. Other times they just stand flat-footed, and they're very beatable. And if they don't win this game at home at homecoming, it's going to be brutal out there.
Yeah.
So
If they don't win this one, it's all over but the work.
Let's talk about the Graham Mertz for a minute. What great value he brings to this program when he's done. We all feel so bad about losing him, not getting to finish, and he's been a great leader. The story I read today was he's looking for ways to continue to help the Gators on the sideline. That's typical Graham Mertz.
It is.
Once they could count the players on the field. Also, Billy's noodling this out. So you've been looking for the right recipe in the booth and who works on the sideline between Roberts and Armstrong. Why did he wait this late to do that? I don't understand. I guess he may be trying to save their careers as well, because if he goes, they're going to go. And anyway, those are a few things. We can go on and find fault. Certainly the 4th and 1 inch call. Everybody said you could line up the quarterback, 240-pound guy taking the sneak and made it. There's other things Shane explained to me, and on. There are other. Which one of those things? And of course, the too many players on the field.
Yeah.
It's very egregious. What bothered you the most? I think we just mentioned this about all those.
All of them bothered me. I had a really big issue with the substitution penalty going into halftime. They got the ball on the 11-yard line. And the mismanagement of time leading up to that field goal is absurd. There was a point
stopping the clock, not throwing a pass, which is really ridiculous.
There was a point in time where they burned 38 seconds because nobody knew where they were supposed to be. And Graham Mertz is having to tell everybody where to go and what to do. And that is a hallmark of these Napier teams. We've seen that happen so many times. We always it's like they think they have all the time in the world. And that's got to be an attitude that gets passed down from the top. Otherwise, it would be fixed by now. We're watching this over and over and over again. But it is asinine to think that you are going to get the ball on the 11-yard line and walk away with no points.
Yeah.
That was going to be the case. You should have just kicked the damn field goal with 1 minute and 11 seconds left.
Yeah.
When you got the ball.
You don't get to try that.
Right. I mean, there's part of me that's like, you know what? Kentucky's only going to score 13 points every single time. The second you get in the red zone, kick a field goal.
Yeah.
Just go. Kick a field goal. Your touchdowns can be if you happen to break off long runs outside the red zone or something. Every time you cross the 20-yard line, kick a field goal, take the points. Because 4 times they walked away with no points.
And that was brutal.
In the red zone in the first half. It's inexcusable. I didn't love, you have a 240-pound quarterback, and all you needed him to do was just not fall backwards. That's it. It was like 4th and maybe an inch. He falls forward. He should get that. And I feel like Napier just always tries to make things cutesy, more complicated than they need to be. And yes, if they had gotten it to the edge and it had been successful, maybe we would all say how brilliant that was. But even if it had worked, it would have been the more difficult choice. And I don't get that. Take the easy route, go forward. And then next series, you have Mertz try a QB sneak. Johnson had just moved us all the way down the field.
Yeah.
Unstoppable at that point. Why would you not give him the ball there?
Confusing. It's very confusing. It really is.
It's confusing. And they talk about you're always going to do what's on the card, or you're never going to do what's on the card, or whatever. And there isn't a whole lot of rhyme or reason to the way he calls things. He doesn't call it all the same.
There's not a rhythm to it. Exactly.
There's no rhythm. And, I think the play that I had the most questions about, which I'm probably the only person on earth that paid attention to this, but the first series, on 3rd down, I want to say it's 3rd and 11. And we threw the ball, I think it was to Boardingham. It might have been to Hansen, but I think it was to Boardingham. And he got 7 yards. So then it was 4th and 4 on their 44, Tennessee's 44-yard line. And we punted it. And I watched tape with Eric. I made him rewatch that play to me. And I was like, was that where the ball was supposed to go? Or did it end up there because the other options were covered? And he was like, no, that was absolutely the first read was where it went, which meant they called a third down play, 3rd down and 11, that no matter what was only going to be worth 7 yards. But then you don't go for it on 4th down. So you put your punter in actually a more difficult position because it's easier for him to get a good punt off from Tennessee's 49 than it is from Tennessee's 44. But you never had any intention of going for it on 4th down.
They don't match up. There's something missing. And by the way, we didn't mention the fact he didn't ask for a measurement.
Yeah.
Really strange, which was free and it cost you a thing. So well, I've got a couple of things to clear up, and Scott Carter's on the line. I'm going to bring you aboard for a minute. Number one, they changed the rules today in college football about how, and I don't know if I totally understand it. They changed the rules where the automatic, the clock went off, it's automatically a penalty. And we saw that in Florida, we saw it at the Oregon game where Lanning used it to run the clock.
Right.
And which is a way to, obviously, I was glad to see they addressed that. So I don't know if I understand the rule completely, but Scott Carter can explain it to us after I do this commercial. We'll bring him aboard and team up. Like we talked to. I just want to mention this is a program brought to you by our fine sponsors, Melvin Law. Melvin Law with offices to serve you in 4 places in North Central Florida: Williston, Ocala, Lake City, and Gainesville. You know about Jeffrey and all the things he does. Trying to join the band. He's got a big week coming up. Is it today? Or he's got the big birthday bash, I believe, or tomorrow. And Jeffrey, of course, is a diehard Gator and supports the program. And by the way, he also practices law. You might, if you need help in that department, and I recently got some. Very pleased with it, by the way. Then you need to call Meldon Law, and they won't back down. Let's go over to back in the orange and blue room, and then we only got you a couple more minutes, Allie. Let's get this guy, Mr. Football himself, Scott Carter. I can't hear you. Turn your ears on.
Turn your ears on.
Let's see if he's got it. No, we don't have you. Yeah, he'll come back. So here's the story. Let's see what you make out of it on the rule change. We'll talk about the 84 Gators too as well. The Rules Committee approved a new interpretation of the in-game substitution. After the 2-minute timeout, either half, if the defense commits either half, if either defense commits a substitution foul and 12 or more players are on the field and participate in a down, officials will penalize the defense for the foul and, at the option of the offended team, reset game clocks back to time displayed on the snap. And I've always thought that was injustice. You can never get the time back, The penalty, helps you, but you lose your time. So the interpretation was the game clock will restart the next snap if the 12th defender was attempting to exit but was still on the field at the snap and had no influence on the play. Then the normal substitution penalty would be enforced with no clock adjustment. Do you understand that?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's essentially the Dan Lanning rule, right? It's because we watched him take advantage of that. But since Florida had the issue, it wouldn't change anything for us, right? Because in theory, Tennessee would then have the option.
I guess not, but
it wouldn't have done anything different for us. It just would have helped Ohio State because Oregon would have assessed the penalty, but the time would have been put back on the clock.
I've always thought that the most precious thing you could lose was time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Those penalties. I think that's very important. I like that part a lot about it.
Wish they didn't exist. I don't love the runoff penalties.
The problem is you got one more factor now to deal with, right? Yet more to deal with. I heard Urban Meyer talking about it tonight. He said that sideline is so chaotic. Mm-hmm. And people are saying, well, this is a different rule. people who are now been playing checkers can play chess. And Urban was outraged and said, if that's the case, I've been playing checkers for 38 years.
That's it. Eric told me about that quote. He saw it. He was, and he was talking about it. He didn't love the move by Lanning. Honestly, there's part of me that was like, it's a gray area. He didn't break a rule, and now a rule exists that didn't before, but it was innovative. And I don't know. I just line up and play football.
Yeah. So in the limited time we have, tell me, we saw the improvement. Are you willing to buy in to say Billy can still turn this around? Because I'm not sure he can. That's not for me to say. I guess it's just going to be proved by, whatever he does or doesn't do. And you saw some improvements, but what's the difference in that and having a moral victory? We don't want moral victories, right? So,
we don't want moral victories, but I think we can acknowledge when we see improvement. I watched a defensive line that loafed and took it easy the first couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Become more aggressive and give more effort. And I think that that's worth acknowledging. Now, you still have to win football games. So you don't get a trophy for that, but you moved closer to victory by playing with 100% effort, by flying around.
Right.
I think it's unlikely that Coach Napier turns this around. I think that he would have to beat Kentucky and Florida State, and then he would have to steal one at least between Texas, Georgia, Ole Miss, and LSU. I would say Texas and Georgia's 0 chance, or 99% chance he does not succeed. And then for LSU and Ole Miss, more than likely LSU and Ole Miss would win, but he's going to have a better shot against those two than he does against Texas and Georgia. If it happens, great. I will root for that to happen. I root for Florida to win every single game, every single week. It just seems unlikely. But I will say this team is bought in, and I am okay with Coach Napier remaining the coach the rest of this season as long as that team continues to be bought in, and they are. Now, if they are bought in the entire year and he still only wins 4 games, that doesn't get him next year. They'll find a new coach. But until the locker room becomes toxic, I don't know that there's a point in making a switch right now. It's a temporary coach. It's not like you're bringing in whoever your next hire is mid-season. And it keeps the players fighting hard. I don't really see the harm, I guess.
Yeah. Well, and of all the things we talk about with Billy, for a detail guy, and that's what he is, right? We used to call
he says he is.
Measure twice, cut once guy.
That's what he says.
He misses too many details.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't understand why it's so difficult for a guy like that. And I think there's probably too much water on the bridge right now.
The left hand, the right hand is doing. I think that having a staff this large may be part of the issue too. I don't know that they communicate. I don't think they know who's in charge of what. I don't think it's nearly as detail oriented as they claim that it is. It can't be, right? Like there's no way that you would still be making high school level mistakes. Truthfully.
Exactly. I agree. Let's see. Well, Scott's not here yet. Kevin Brockway's up, but we'll hold on for Scott. We'll try to get him one more time before we let you go. All right. So tell me the bright spots. The defense played better. You got a heck of a quarterback. Isn't it funny? He went like 500 from 500 and the ball didn't touch the ground. And then he throws his first pick in that game, and the question is, do you think he can step up now, become that guy without Mertz behind him?
I think he's got all the talent in the world. I think we're going to watch him develop. I think there's a great chance we see freshman mistakes. And he is a freshman. He's 18 years old. He's getting a baptism by fire right now, And so I've maintained this since the summer. Graham Mertz has a higher floor and DJ Lagway has a higher ceiling. And so we may see some mistakes that we wouldn't see Graham Mertz make. But we're also probably going to see some ESPN top 10 plays that we weren't going to see out of Mertz too. And it's just, are there enough of those top 10 plays to counteract any sort of freshman mistake that may happen? And that's not a knock against DJ Lagway. Starting as a true freshman in the SEC is a feat, and it is bound to come with some growing pains. But if we're talking bright spots from Tennessee, how about DK? I thought he was awesome.
Well, boy, what a player he turned out to be.
And on offense, yes, he was a stud.
I mean, yeah, the receivers, now that they're getting Wilson back, hopefully, and the rest of those guys, they can put some ballers on the field now.
Yeah.
And I think they got a quarterback that can get it to them. And so, anyway, it's I'm a huge fan of his, have been since the day I saw him throw a football. I'm on record as saying he was going to be a great player when I saw him. And I watched some of his high school film. And I think he will be.
Yeah.
I just hope they don't muck it up now, because you don't get a quarterback like that very often,
Right. Yeah.
Well, now you got to run. Let me get you out of here. And Scott Carter's having some problems. So we're going to talk to Kevin Brockway next. He has an issue with Billy not going for it. And a lot of us do. I can see, don't you normally go for it on the road and go for the tie at home? Isn't that what the deal is? I thought it was. So didn't do that. But thank you very much, Allie. Good to see you again. I'm glad you have power, that you're dry, and you're back on the show. Unfortunately, David Moulton had some issues, health issues with the family tonight, could not join you. So I'm sure he regrets not being a part of Sweet and Sour tonight. So any final comments?
Well, you know what? Hopefully we can go out and beat Kentucky at home for homecoming.
Yeah, there you go. All right. Thank you, Allie. Appreciate it.
All right. Have a good day. Bye.
Peek-Wilbur, by the way, she does a heck of a podcast. You ought to check it out and peek inside the Gators. All right. So while I tell you about my other sponsors, particularly TitanMRI.com, they are a company now in North Florida that does MRIs. And if you're not aware of them, you should be, because there'll be a lot of things that you like, not the least of which is they will custom make you an appointment. If you can't come during the week because you work, they'll give you one at night or the weekends. They also will take cash or card if you don't have insurance. They know that we get claustrophobic inside those cages sometimes, and they'll also do their best to accommodate you on that. They have some larger ones that they think will help you along with that. So if you need an MRI, I encourage you to check it out online, TitanMRI.com. I think we got Scott Carter back. We'll see if we can get him. And then we're going to bring Kevin Brockway. Let's see if we can get Scotty Bory up to you. Are you there, Scott? Oh, his audio's not working again. Yeah. Hello, Scott. Are you there? No. He's in the office working. It's not working tonight, no? Sorry. Appreciate very much you trying. And we'll catch up to you again soon, Scott. It's frustrating. I'll tell you, it's very frustrating. I know. And I know Kevin Brockway knows about that. He joins the program now. The Games of the Sun. Kevin Brockway. What's up, Kev?
Can you hear me? I can hear you fine.
I got you perfect, man.
Good deal.
Yeah, it's really disgusting when you get to a point like that. You put all effort into it to get on the show, and then some button doesn't work somewhere, as you know. So, we were just having quite a conversation about, obviously, Saturday night's game in Knoxville, one that got away, one that could have changed the nature of the future of Florida football in some regards. That didn't happen. We won't go over every detail of the game, but you had an interesting point. I think you brought it up more than anybody else did, Kevin, when you said, where's the scare money, don't make money boldness? Somebody heard it from the coach. When you get down to it, the game is there. Replay that play in your mind, what you saw and what your emotions were. Explain your thoughts on your piece that you had today.
Well, they showed the swinging gate and they thought that they were going to go to two. It's funny. Chris Lowe was sitting next to me from ESPN, as you know, a very talented reporter. And he's like, why doesn't Billy go for two here? So, and Graham Hall is sitting on the other side, was mentioning, the defense is playing well. I could see him, maybe trying to tie it and take their chances on the overtime session. But they showed that swinging gate play, which I thought was interesting. Then Tennessee obviously calls the timeout. And they must not have thought that they had a second play necessarily that was a sure thing enough maybe to do it. So I actually thought it wasn't a terrible decision But I think the bigger point of my column is, listen, he did come in with this scared money don't make money mantra, and the track record shows in 3 years as a coach, he's been a pretty conservative guy. You can go all the way back to last year in the Charlotte game when he settled for 3 field goals instead of a 10-yard line instead of going for it. You could, certainly look at the nature of his offense, which is more horizontal patterns than vertical patterns. How he likes to kind of protect leads like he did against UCF against Tennessee rather than go for the jugular, which, as you know, Gator fans like in the swamp. They like it when you run up the score a little bit. So I think that's kind of the bigger issue is that, here's a guy who kind of advertised himself with one way, but really has been probably more conservative of the coaches he's led on. And maybe that's a reflection also of his team and the fact that he's not maybe fully confident in what he has yet.
Yeah. I don't know. Do you remember specifically the game or he got that particular reputation when he said, "Scare money don't make money"? Because he sounds like a swashbuckler. You think, "Oh,
yeah,
this guy's going to take
it was in a game against Louisiana, where he went for it on 4th and 1 at the end of the half. But his team was up 14-3, and ironically enough, it was Montrell Johnson that scored the touchdown. So who came with him to Florida. But that's when people pulled up that clip, I think the Florida fans got very excited and so forth. But I think his, and I had heard coming from Louisiana, though, that his real, if you looked at him and when he talks about playing complementary football, he's not really a light up the scoreboard guy. And he's not a guy that, takes as many risks necessarily as that, moniker seemed to suggest.
Yeah. I see what you're talking about. I think we determined what happens to Scott is apparently University doesn't only allow Zoom in their system. So here you go. Once again. Look, you've been a journalist for a while. You're a veteran. You've gone through this.
Yeah.
You tend to tell it like it is and do a really good job of reporting and getting the details on the story. And a lot of people get angry at you and others who want to tell you what happened. And they don't want you to, they don't want to hear that, right? They don't want to hear that. And, but you tread right ahead knowing you're not in a popularity contest. You're going to do your best. And over the years, I've tried very hard to maintain a balance in that regard because I make no mistake. I do say what I think, and I know it's cost me friends. But most of the time, the people that I've dealt with, their players and coaches, when they were reading my stuff, which they don't always get to see, they understood. We played bad. You're right. We played bad. Now coaches don't like to get second guess, but that's just the way it goes. So a lot of people didn't like the 4th and inches call, like Bruce Green, and a lot of us had questions. Did you share the idea that a quarterback sneak would have done the job?
Yeah, well, I kind of thought that it's interesting because it was a read option play, right? And DJ made the read on that play to Trey Wilson for the sweep. And Billy Napier explained he thought the perimeter was blocked and one guy just made a great play. Now, I guess if you line up under center in that situation and have Lagway just sweep it, just sneak it, and the fact that Jake Slaughter had been pretty good on his man most of the game, you would think you would have been able to get that inch. But I do think it's interesting with DJ Lagway. And listen, it's going to be very interesting. Obviously, going into this game, he's going to get, his first SEC start. This isn't going to be Samford, right? It's going to be a little bit of a different deal. But, we haven't seen DJ Lagway, the runner, as much as I thought we would see. And we're probably not going to see a lot of it for the rest of the year either, too, with Aiden Warner as his backup, right?
Yeah.
Let's pose this question, okay? If you have a read option play and you're a guy like Tim Tebow, do you charge ahead behind DJ to Jake Slaughter? I don't know. I just think that, I haven't seen Lagway, the runner, or a guy that for his size is really a bulldog. Let's put it that way. Like he doesn't have that mentality, but obviously a great thrower, a great downfield thrower, and that's really his strengths.
The problem is when a kid hasn't taken a sneak in a game before.
Yeah.
You don't want to do it. We saw it happen to Mertz, and it's too easy to make the mistake if you haven't done that in that situation. But that you haven't taken it, that haven't practiced that play, is amazing if you're a coach and you got a big guy back there for those. Again, he's not prepared for the moment, right?
You could say that. Yeah, exactly. Well, we don't know. We're not there. We don't know how many sneaks that they run in practice in that situation. But it doesn't seem like they run a lot of those kind of running plays. Seems like they do more of the sprint draws with him, if you've been watching the games, than they have with the sneak under center. Now, listen, with Graham Mertz, they did a lot of those quarterback sneaks last year, and they were successful.
Yeah.
That kind of play. And certainly, he tried it again, obviously, in the Tennessee game. That was really a killer play. And James Pierce made a great play to knock the ball out. But that was another real killer, the red zone. You 1 for 4, you only get 3 points in the first half when you probably could have had a 13, 16-point lead at halftime. That just really hurt. And again, the 12 men on the field, too, that's just inexcusable. It's happening over and over again. And you thought that was an issue that got fixed. So all things from the sideline that certainly, you've got to clean up here for the rest of the season.
Yeah. Kevin Brockway, the Angels' son, is with us tonight. Appreciate him filling in. Unfortunately, Scott cannot join us. He's got an issue with his particular it's his system at the University of Florida's office. So sorry we missed Scott. We'll try to get him on next time at his house. I want to talk to you about a couple of things. First, I want to look at the league. I had this discussion earlier in the week with my friends here about what this league looks like and the idea that the final product is terrific. If you watch the triple headers, which I've been watching when I'm home, when I'm not at the game on the road, which I wasn't. And what a treat it is to see back-to-back games in the SEC. And at least two of them were the game we thought would be the biggest was the most boring. But boy, the SEC was on some shows. And now you look at the league, what do you have? What do you have versus what you thought you had? And there's some teams that we thought would be better that aren't. And we're going to go over some of those and talk about them and get your thoughts on that, okay?
Sure, no question. And, a lot of parity, obviously, which I don't know, is that good for the league or not? Is it good not to have a bell cow team like in Alabama or Georgia? Yeah. I mean, certainly Texas is the only undefeated team left in the league right now, and they've got the game of the century with Georgia this week as well.
Before we do that, let's talk about a special group of people that are finally going to get recognized. I wasn't here and didn't cover that team, but I know a little bit about it. I knew Charlie Pell and talked to him a lot about it. And this 84 team, which unfortunately got a rough deal. And one of the things that Steve Spurrier told me, he says he wasn't so sure some of those charges that against Pell were actual charges. He thinks they were bogus. He thinks the thing that got him in trouble was the car dealer in Palatka, who gave the running back, what's his name, the money for child support. And Spurrier told me, he says, technically that was not a violation, because if you had a previous relationship with somebody and they gave you money, then that wasn't illegal. But anyway, so it is what it is. There's no doubting the fact that it was a rather loose those days. But now this 84 team, which Charlie really basically put together and wasn't here to coach it, they were terrific. And I'm going to read you Chris Storing's comments. I want to get your thoughts about. You're a historian. You read. You know what this team is about. Because those guys were my heroes. They were the first team to win an SEC championship in UF. Remember, they didn't win one before it was taken away. I remember sitting at Florida Field for the pep rally when the team returned from beating UK. They deserve so much credit for what they did to advance Gator football. Your thoughts?
Yeah, and it's amazing. A different time at Florida Field, right? You had the artificial turf and the orange jerseys, and it's hard to believe if you go back in a time warp to the 1980s then. But Lomas Brown, right? Obviously Neil Anderson. I mean, some great players certainly on that team that went on to some very distinguished NFL careers, and really a situation where I believe, weren't they declared a national champion? I believe in one poll, like the New York Times or something.
National championship. Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's how talented they were that season, that 1984 season. And certainly, kind of, those teams of the 80s, I think, kind of paved the way a little bit for the 1990s and for Steve Spurrier to come in and kind of take it to another more consistent level. But I do remember, Jeremy Foley, the former athletic director, really, and Bill Arnsparger before that whole situation, they really became hawks on compliance after that too, and they brought in Jamie McCloskey and so forth. So I think the lessons learned from that, even though, we can debate if it was a raw deal or not, Florida really became the button-down outfit after that because of the fact that they lost that SEC championship due to some NCAA rules.
They were demonized by everybody. And, it's the kids on the team that played were so good that didn't get a chance to enjoy that, which is unfortunate. So, nonetheless. All right, on to the league. I mean, could you ask for better football? I mean, my gosh, the teams are yet. It looks so funny to look at the standings and see Texas A&M 3-0, Texas 2-0, LSU 2-0, Georgia 3-1, Tennessee 2-1, Vanderbilt 2-1, Arkansas 2-1. Missouri is not the great team we thought. They're now 1-3, I believe now, in the league. Ole Miss has lost 2. The team we thought was going to be the winner and then be playing for the championship. Oklahoma has lost 2. South Carolina's lost 3. Kentucky's lost 3 and could have 4 after this week. Auburn has not won a game and it's 0-3. Mississippi State is 0-3. So it's not exactly that we thought. What happened to teams like? What happened to team? Well, we know what happened to Vanderbilt. At Alabama, they ran to Vanderbilt. That's that big juggernaut. And then, of course, I guess the biggest surprise is Vanderbilt, I would say. But how about Arkansas? They're hanging in there. Your thoughts about the landscape of the SEC right now?
Yeah, as I mentioned, I think a lot of parity week to week. And, it's funny. My prediction for the Florida-Tennessee score was 21-17. It was 23-17. And Shane Matthews was trying to tell me pregame they were going to get blown out. And I said, listen, Tennessee's been struggling offensively. They were the 2 weeks before against Arkansas and Oklahoma. I didn't necessarily think that they were that great shakes, but here they are 2-1 and they're going to host Alabama, and that should be an interesting game. But Tennessee defensively, I will say, is legit, though, in terms of the fact that they mentioned the stat in the press box. First time since 1969 that they've held 6 opponents under 20 points to start the season. So they do have a lot of talent, a lot of physicality on that side of the ball from seeing them head-to-head. So they could perhaps stay in the league race with that. I still think Georgia and Alabama and Texas are kind of the cream of the crop and will rise. I do think that I would label Ole Miss as probably the biggest disappointment in the league. Lane Kiffin, and this was supposed to be their year, and they're 0-2. Losing at home to Kentucky, especially, that was a bad loss. So who knows what kind of team they're going to be coming into the Swamp in November, and maybe that's a chance for Billy Napier to steal a game because everyone thought that they were going to be a top 10 team. So I do think that. Like I said, it's a topsy-turvy league. It's a parity league. And I know in a couple of weeks, I think we're going to see a lot different. But hats off to Diego Pavia too, right? This guy's got a little Tim Tebow, and he's a bulldog for sure. And he's a guy that is a lot of fun to watch. But that Vandy story's been very fun too. Bringing him in and Jerry Kill and what Clark Lee has done. He should be in contention for Coach of the Year for sure.
Yeah, how about that? I mean, to turn that program around for sure. Very impressed with the coaching job he's done there. Right now, he'd be my choice, for the Coach of the Year. On terms of the coach's longevity and when the change will be made, I'll ask you, do you think Billy will survive? And if not, when do you think they'll pull the plug?
Everything we're hearing is that Scott's going to give him the whole season, basically, that he wants to give him the benefit of the doubt. He wants to give him this year 3. The players have not quit on him, which is certainly a positive sign. The fact that they continue to play hard. And look, he does make a lot of sideline mistakes. That's been documented. And I'm sure it drives the fans nuts. But to counter that, the fact that they went into Neyland Stadium and played as hard as they did, you have to give them kudos for that, and the fact that they are showing some signs of progress and improvement on the defensive side of the ball. Some players are developing, I think, too, as sophomores. And we have to still remember this is still a very young team in a lot of spots. And the fact that, perhaps if you stick with that and realize that these young players are going to form a nucleus in a couple of years as juniors and seniors, and you have a freshman quarterback in DJ Lagway, this might be an unpopular opinion, but maybe, it's sticking with him instead of, trying to go out in the open market and get another guy and start over might be the way to go. But I think for Billy to do that, he's going to have to get to at least 6 wins. And but that's possible, especially if they beat Kentucky. And I'm telling you, they could steal one in the swamp against LSU and Ole Miss, and then also beat FSU. That doesn't look like any great shakes, be 6-6 and get to a bowl game. Yeah. And that may be enough for Billy Napier to get a 4th year.
Maybe it's a big if. But anyway, my heart goes out to him because he's a good person. I guess I don't really know him. I've never had more than 3 words with him talking to him, but it's certainly he knows football. It seems like something in his timing and his rhythm, and he holds on to things like he's gonna call the plays. He didn't really want to have a special teams coach. He was like, I'm gonna do it my way, and it seems like in a way he wants to cover up the identity of the people making decisions. He wasn't very clear about the special teams. He wasn't very clear about the offensive job. I thought Callaway was going to call plays. I have no idea if he did or didn't. I know one game he didn't. So I hear these things, and we have no way to get any answers. And that would be the most frustrating thing. I know you go to all the press conferences and you ask good questions, and you don't ever get a direct answer. It's got to be absolutely drive you crazy, man.
I think there are certain reasons for that, and I think Billy might be loyal to a fault to certain guys, as he suggested. But if you watch on the sideline, he holds the play sheet, so that kind of tells you that. Yeah, I think that kind of tells you that he's still calling the plays. We asked him about the defensive. We asked about the defensive play calling again, and he said it was a collaborative effort, as he said before in the offensive. He didn't want to. He didn't want to admit that Ron Roberts probably has the final decision there right now over Austin Armstrong, but which is what we're hearing. But it's like I said, it's a little bit of subterfuge, but that's to be expected for SEC coaches. I do think there's a little bit of a stubborn streak in him. I would say that because, like you said, I think what he ultimately still believes that what he did at Louisiana is going to work in the SEC, and hasn't necessarily adapted to certain things, and that could end up being his downfall in the end if he doesn't make it through the season. But as he says, still a lot of football to be played, and it's going to be a tough second half of the schedule. But I don't think it's going to be as tough of a second half of the schedule as originally intended, because, like I said, I think Ole Miss is vulnerable, and I do think that FSU certainly is vulnerable. So there are chances, but this game against Kentucky is really pivotal. You've got a bad offensive team coming in here. I think that one of the keys, obviously, with DJ Lagway with his first SEC start is just don't make mistakes. Maybe play it safe at time, because this Kentucky team is not necessarily going to bring back memories of the greatest show on turf here. And manage the game, play a good game, and ride your defense, which is playing really well right now.
Yeah. A little breaking news here for you. Apparently, Brandon Spikes is involved in a car accident this evening.
Oh, geez.
According to what Buck Wade says, you might want to check that out for your paper.
No question. Yeah, hopefully he's okay. Hopefully he's okay. Yeah. Hopefully he's good. Yeah. Also, news: Montrell Johnson and Trayon Webb both questionable for the game per the availability.
Yeah, I read that list earlier in the show, and I mentioned that. You're right, but good to bring it up. Not everybody hears everybody. Well, here we go. It's Kentucky on Saturday night. I think the fan support's been great. Their home crowds have been sensational. They've been very loud and raucous and very supportive. So they can't complain about that. So, all right, man, good job. You can read Kevin in the Gainesville Sun. The other, I guess your stuff's in the other papers again, that right?
Yes, exactly. All over the state, you can find me. So we appreciate it. I've been getting emails from people in Gulf Breeze, beautiful Gulf Breeze, Florida, which, as you know, the Florida Panhandle. And, once upon a time, buddy, I worked in Fort Walton back in 1999. So I miss those days on the Emerald Coast, those free and easy days on the beach back in my 20s. So
Yeah, how about that? Yeah. Well, you're a man of many
Yeah.
talents in many places. So thank you. You do a great job. One of the really good hard news reporter. And thank you for being on the show tonight and going extra long because we lost our Scott Carter. So, Toby wants to know that John L. Williams is going to be Mr. Two Bits on Saturday, which will be good. Did somebody said something about the last Gator who was person who was on that team was Mr. Two Bits and then picked him to lose in the game. I don't know.
that was Emmett Smith, right? Yeah.
All right, Kevin Brockway. Thank you, buddy. Appreciate it. Good job.
All right. Thank you, buddy. Bye-bye.
All right. Kevin Brockway added a lot to the program tonight. We appreciate that. Sorry about not being able to get Scott on the air. We want to be sure to tell you about our friends and sponsors. As you know, they make it happen around here. And Meldon Law being one of them, has been with us for a long time, and Titan MRI, and then our special friends at Renstar, who do such a terrific job and have been doing it for our community and for us. They sponsor a lot of things, and they support everything that Florida does. Of course, Jeffrey's always campaigning for the band. Very proud of him. Jeffrey also has some terrific giveaways. You better check them out. Some trips and tickets and what have you. So go to the Facebook page, Meldon Law, and check those out. And they're easy to win. Not like you have to jump through hoops and answer 19 questions. So and by the way, they also practice law. Well, you know that they are very diligent about that, and they're among the best. I've had experiences with them lately, and I can tell you the job they've done for me is phenomenal. And so if you need that part of the equation, they can take care of it. Check them out. Meldon Law, 3 locations to serve you. Lake City, Ocala, now 4, Gainesville, and Williston. Meldon Law, they won't back down. Thanks to our guest tonight, Peek-Wilbur. Good to see her back. Good luck to David Moulton and the issue that his family's got with health. Sorry about Scott Carter, couldn't get him on tonight. And thanks a lot to Kevin Brockway for filling in tonight. We do appreciate that very much. Tomorrow night, we'll wrap up the week with our good friends, the Orange and Blue Bloods. Ben Troop will be back. He's always got something good to say, interesting to say. So you want to be sure not to miss that. Franz Beard's back. By the way, if you're not reading Franz's stuff on Gatorbait, I heartily suggest that you do, because it's among the best stuff you'll read. He'll have a great piece this week on the 84 team, which he covered and knew. And he'll, of course, have a game column on Kentucky. So check out Gatorbait, join up, and find out why people like to be part of Gatorbait. And, of course, thank you to all of our sponsors, all of our guests tonight. So with that, we will say good night. Thank you. Back at you tomorrow night.